Hello everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're going to dive into a powerful and emotional story filled with trust, betrayal, and love. The journey of Tu Tieu and Uri as they fight against powerful forces to protect their small farm and the dreams they've built together. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Dawn stretched across the rice fields like a golden curtain. Mist clung to the tips of the grass, while the damp, earthy scent of the soil floated on the breeze. Ly Tu Tieu walked quickly along the rows of cucumber vines, carrying a wicker basket against her hip. Her steps were light but purposeful. The cucumbers glistened with morning dew, plump and cool beneath her careful hands. Each one she picked landed softly in the basket, every movement calm, deliberate, and steady. To anyone watching, it might have seemed like just another morning in the countryside. Yet inside those humble cucumbers lay the seeds of a much larger dream. For months, Tu Tieu had saved every coin from her harvests. Every jar sold, every bundle of bamboo shoots, every small deal made was poured into a single project. A tiny workshop, just an old room with a tin roof. But inside, lined neatly on wooden shelves, stood rows of glass jars. Each jar bore a carefully pressed label. Inside were her homemade pickled cucumbers and preserved bamboo shoots. This little workshop wasn't just about food. It was Tu Tieu's ambition to transform her village's produce into real branded products. To break free from the limitations of local markets and see her jars on the shelves of big supermarkets one day. Inside the warehouse, Uri was already working. He wasn't wearing a suit, no expensive watch on his wrist. Just a plain dark shirt, sleeves rolled up, a hammer in one hand, and a drill in the other. His wealthy background was nowhere to be seen in the dust on his hands or the sweat dripping down his face. Anyone who knew Uri as the heir of a powerful family would have been stunned to see him this way, bent over raw planks of wood, hammering away. But in that moment, to Tu Tieu, he wasn't the aloof, unreachable heir. He was a man determined to help build something that truly mattered. "You should let me do this," Tu Tieu said, setting her basket down. "Your hands aren't made for this kind of work." Uri glanced at her, smiled faintly, and shook his head, sweat sliding down his temple. "I want to build these shelves myself," he said. "That way, every jar you put here will stand on something I helped create." They both laughed quietly, and for a moment, there was peace. Real peace. In those moments, Uri wasn't the rich man people whispered about. In the scent of vinegar and bamboo shoots, surrounded by wooden shelves and jars, he was simply someone willing to get his hands dirty for her. But behind his easy smile, Uri carried a shadow. He remembered too well the collapse of lythihuong, a company once thriving, brought down in an instant. People said it was the market, just bad timing. Uri knew better. Accidents like that don't happen without someone pulling the strings. He never told Tu Tieu. Instead, he asked his trusted friend Viet to dig into old contracts, old names, pieces of the truth hidden in the wreckage. Sometimes, Tu Tieu caught that heavy look in Uri's eyes. She never pressed him with questions. To her, trust mattered more than answers. If Uri had secrets, she trusted they were for a reason. The storm came faster than either of them expected. One afternoon, Tu Tieu's phone wouldn't stop ringing. On the other end, was a frantic supplier. Ly Tu Tieu, we can't deliver anymore. We've been told we're under pressure from above. That one call turned her world upside down. Overnight, their supply lines collapsed. Orders froze. Then came the rumors. Whispers that her products were low quality, that there was contamination. Customers who had only just begun to believe in her turned skeptical. Tu Tieu sat at her desk, spreadsheets glowing red with losses, the clock ticking like a hammer against her skull. Sales dropped, costs shot up. It was like watching her dream bleed out in numbers. But instead of breaking down, she stood back up. She called farmer after farmer in neighboring villages, bargaining for small harvests, even at higher prices. Anything to keep the jars filled. On social media, she posted plain, simple lines about her cucumbers helping digestion, about bamboo shoots strengthening bones. No glossy campaigns, no flashy ads, just honesty. And somehow, that honesty held. A small circle of loyal customers clung to her sincerity, enough to keep her dream alive. Uri watched all of this quietly. One night, when Tu Tieu had fallen asleep over her desk, he wrapped an arm around her and whispered, "I have a plan, but I can't tell you yet. I don't want you to be in danger." Her heart twisted at the secrecy, but she didn't protest. If the day came when the truth finally burst into the light, she only wanted the strength to stand beside him, not collapse in his shadow. The enemy didn't stop. Uri's mother, the Iron Lady of boardrooms, struck harder. Soon, nearly identical jars of pickled cucumbers appeared in the market. Same size, same look, but at half the price. Distributors turned away. Customers drifted. Tu Tieu's company was like a small boat in a violent storm, threatening to capsize. And then came the cruelest blow of all. One late afternoon, Uri sat across from her. His eyes were distant. Finally, he said, "I'm going back to my mother's company. I need to build my career there." The words hit like thunder. Tu Tieu froze. What did you just say?" "I can't stay here forever," he said, avoiding her gaze. "Your company, it's too small to survive this war. With my mother, I can..." "Can what?" Tu Tieu's voice cracked. "Crush my dream?" Uri bit his lip, his chest aching. He wanted to tell her it was all part of a plan, a disguise. But if even a single word slipped, Tu Tieu would become a target. He had to swallow the truth, no matter how much it hurt. "If that's your choice," Tu Tieu said, standing tall, though her eyes burned red, "then I have mine. I'll keep this company alive, alone." That night, the warehouse stood silent under the moonlight. No laughter, no warmth, just the sound of jars being sealed, lids twisting shut, cloths wiping glass. Each action cut deeper than a knife. She remembered Uri's smile as he built those shelves, his promises. Now all she had were cold, mute jars staring back at her. Far away, Uri walked into a gleaming high-rise. His suit was perfect, his expression unreadable. Colleagues welcomed the heir home. To them, he was finally sensible, finally abandoning the farm girl. But inside, his heart screamed. He wasn't betraying her. He was pretending to be the betrayer. On his phone, hidden from sight, was a single photo of Tu Tieu standing beside the wooden shelf. That image was his anchor, the reason he kept going. From the day Uri left, silence wrapped itself around Tu Tieu's world. There were no calls, no messages, only the rhythm of her own stubborn effort. Yet sometimes, faint traces of his unseen hand reached her through Viet. "A new supplier suddenly agreed to work with us," Viet whispered once. Don't ask why, just take it. Tu Tieu understood immediately. It was Uri. Even after walking away, even after his words had cut her so deeply, he was still there in the shadows protecting her. But every time she remembered him saying, I need to build my career there, her heart reopened like a wound that refused to heal. Meanwhile, Uri wore his mask well. To the business world, he was the prodigal son returned, the heir who had finally chosen power over sentiment. His mother's cold smile said it all. She believed she had won. And beside her stood Lynn, the new assistant. She was poised and elegant, her voice soft and sweet, but in her eyes flickered envy sharp enough to cut. She stayed close to Uri, constantly whispering, You deserve more. Don't waste yourself on a failing farm girl. With me, and with your mother's trust, we could rule everything together. Uri never answered. His silence was sharper than any rejection, but Lynn mistook it as hesitation, as a challenge. At night, though, Uri stripped away the mask. Alone in his room, he opened his laptop and pieced together the truth. He copied contracts, archived old emails, sifted through boardroom orders. Slowly, the picture became horrifyingly clear. His mother had been the one who orchestrated the collapse of lythieuong, and now she was using the same ruthless tactics against Tu Tieu, pressuring suppliers, spreading rumors, flooding the market with counterfeit jars. Each file Uri uncovered was like a dagger twisting in his chest, but each one was also another weapon in the case he was building. While Uri fought in silence, Tu Tieu battled openly. By day, she trudged from farm to farm, persuading smallholders to sell her cucumbers at higher costs. By night, she stayed in the warehouse, labeling jars until her fingers bled. One morning at the market, she overheard the whispers that cut deeper than any wound. Uri's gone back to his mother, someone muttered. Of course he did. A rich heir would never stay with a village girl. Tu Tieu clenched her jaw and walked past, refusing to let tears fall in front of strangers. But later, alone in the warehouse with nothing but rows of silent jars around her, her throat tightened, and the tears she'd held back came spilling out. Quietly, to no one but herself, she vowed, Even if there is only one customer left, I will keep going. Back in the city, Lynn's jealousy twisted into ambition. At a company party, she leaned close to Uri, her voice dripping with honey. Your mother trusts me completely, she whispered. Together, we could take everything. Just let go of that farm girl, and I'll walk with you to the very top. Uri met her gaze, his voice low and steady as steel. The top you describe is built on the tears of innocent people. I would rather fall into the abyss than stand on that. Lynn froze, then forced a sweet smile, but the venom in her eyes deepened. The reckoning came sooner than anyone expected. A board meeting was called, the room full of powerful executives. Uri's mother entered with her usual aura of command, Lynn trailing proudly behind her. Uri sat calmly, unreadable, as discussions of expansion buzzed around the table. Then quietly but firmly, he slid a file forward. Before decisions are made, he said, there's something everyone needs to see. At first, no one paid much attention, but when the screen lit up, gasps rippled through the room. There were the emails, the supplier contracts, the documents outlining sabotage and rumor campaigns, the very plans that had destroyed lythihuong and nearly crushed Tu Tieu. The room erupted in whispers. Executives paled. Uri's mother shot to her feet, eyes blazing. "You dare betray me?" she snarled. Uri's voice stayed calm. "No, I betray corruption. You destroyed Lythihuong. You tried to destroy Tu Tieu, but I will not allow it anymore." Lyn tried to intervene, her voice shrill. "Don't believe him. These are forgeries." Uri cut her off by tossing a USB onto the table. "Original data. Verified. Check it yourselves." Silence crashed down on the boardroom. Finally, a director spoke, his voice like a gavel. "We need an explanation, madam." For the first time, cracks spread across his mother's mask. Her face drained of color. The board shifted against her, the tide turning. Lyn's confidence wilted. Her gamble had failed. One by one, the executives withdrew their support. When the meeting ended, Uri's mother was forced to step down, her once unshakable power crumbling in front of her. Uri walked out of that building lighter, his chest no longer burdened by secrets. But his heart pounded with a single thought: go back. His car sped down country roads, the golden fields unfurling like open arms beneath the setting sun. In the warehouse, Tu Tieu was still wiping jars, unaware that the storm had already broken. Viet burst in, breathless. "Sister Tu Tieu, Uri, he exposed everything. His mother lost." The words shattered her iron composure. Tu Tieu collapsed onto the floor, tears flooding freely after so many days of holding them back. Uri appeared in the doorway. He stepped forward slowly, his voice hushed. "I'm sorry," he said. And then he told her everything. The plan, the disguise, the fear that had kept him silent. Each word hurt, but each word also healed. Anger dissolved into understanding, and understanding into something softer. Uri dropped to one knee beside the very wooden shelf he had built with his own hands. He opened a small ring box, his hands trembling, but his eyes resolute. "I can't promise a life without storms," he whispered, "but I promise to face every storm with you. Will you marry me?" Tears shimmered in Tu Tieu's eyes, but this time they were not tears of pain. They were tears of trust. She nodded, and in that nod, the weight of all the battles they had fought lifted away. Outside, the rice fields bent as if bowing in applause. The stream sang like a chorus. Inside the warehouse, the ring gleamed in the fading light, reflected in her eyes. Their laughter rose again, not the laughter of survivors clinging to what was left, but the laughter of victors who had carved their own place in the world together. Tu Tieu and Uri's love story unfolds against the backdrop of a small farm and a dream to turn simple cucumbers into branded products. Together, they build a workshop, fill jars with pickles, and believe in a brighter future. But powerful forces strike back. Uri's mother, a ruthless businesswoman, pressures suppliers, spreads rumors, and floods the market with counterfeit goods. Tu Tieu struggles to keep her company alive, while Uri makes the painful choice to betray her, secretly infiltrating his mother's empire to expose the truth. Torn by silence and sacrifice, both fight their battles, one with jars, the other with hidden files. In the end, Uri reveals the corruption, brings his mother down, and returns to Tu Tieu. With a ring in hand, he promises not a life without storms, but a love strong enough to weather them all.